Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back here with Pulse of the Pack. I am your host, Jacob Westendorf, with Team Degenerate, Matt Bove. Matt, a big winner last week on the only game that we had. So, hey, let's get a little rich this week. We've got a few more games to talk to you about this week. But last week, we're going to jump in real quick. We're going to talk about Arizona covering the 3-point spread that they had. They were given points against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta just a constantly, it seems to be a disappointing team. Cardinals able to cover that and actually win the game outright. Were you sweating at least a little bit when Bryant lined up to kick the extra point to tie the game?
I mean, yeah, it looks like you're at that point, you're going to overtime. And anytime you have a 27-3 lead on your bet and you have to sweat it out, that's never a good feeling.
Yeah, that can't be positive. But thankfully, for your sake, they were able to pull that out. And then you ended up making a player prop bet in the Packers game on Monday night. You took Aaron Jones over 30 receiving yards, and, well, a little heartbreaking there.
Yeah, I mean, 33-yard touchdown right off his hands. I mean, I could have called it. You could have called it. Pretty much anybody with, hands could have called it. Very disappointing, especially after he had like 15 yards in the first series receiving. I figured that, Rodgers would have a tough time finding some people open against, a secondary that got Darius Slay back against some receivers that obviously were inexperienced. And I figured it'd be a lot of dump downs to Jones like it was in the Dallas game. But he fumbled, he dropped the ball, so Jamal Williams came in and took a lot of his snaps, which obviously hurt me there.
Yeah, Jamal Williams actually had one of the biggest and maybe arguably the best game of his career, and actually kind of saved you because you had the under at 22-20, and if Jamal Williams scores a touchdown, are you freaking out that he's going to get in the end zone at that point?
I mean, I was hoping from the under bet and from a Packers fan standpoint, he would do the smart thing and go down to one, which is what he did. And, early on in the game when Detroit, hits two, 70-yard bombs in the first two series, you're not feeling very good about your under bet. So fortunately, the Packers defense stepped up and we were able to cash that ticket.
Yeah, they were pretty good there the other night, and then able to get the win, which ultimately is, from a fandom standpoint, we get a win. When you can win on the bet and win on the field, those are certainly positive feelings that you can have there. So cashing more tickets than not, that's the goal here. If you could say 2 out of 3, that ain't bad. That's 67% of our bets from last week. So we're at a good spot this week. Let's talk about your 3 games of the week that you have this week. We've got the Rams -3 at Atlanta. Tell me what, the Rams struggling a little bit. They just added Jalen Ramsey. But the Falcons, again, maybe that's the team that you're kind of targeting in terms of a team that you want to bet against pretty frequently. But we're looking at a few different things here. So kind of tell me about your process. What makes you think the Rams cover that spread on the road?
Yeah, Jacob, you nailed it in your assessment. The Falcons, this is more of a Falcons fade. I mean, the Rams, I'm not that high on them right now with the way they're playing. But this is another fade on Atlanta. This team's terrible, and the market's still not pricing them correctly. They're pricing them more as, kind of a team that's, maybe around, the 20th or 20, between 20 and maybe 24th, 25th best team in the league. And I think they're one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league right now. I mean, they were down 27-3 to the Cardinals. I mean, that is absolutely terrible. Kyler Murray, who I had a player prop on, is over in passing yards of 250. He went for 340, 3 touchdowns. The Falcons secondary is still in shambles with Trufant not practicing it again this week. He'll probably be out. Keanu Neal, as we mentioned last year, is out for the year. The Falcons have no pass rush, which is what gives Goff a lot of issues. If Goff has time, he's he's a competent quarterback if he has time. If he's under pressure, he doesn't have the mobility, a lot like Cousins, I'd say. So Atlanta, no pass rush, and this is a perfect get-right game for the Rams. I mean, they need this game, having lost a couple in a row right now. And the Ramsey trade, I mean, I don't really like the trade long-term. I mean, I don't really think it makes a ton of sense giving up 2 firsts for him, especially at the position the Rams are already in, giving up so many draft picks. But in the short term, it's going to give the team a lot of energy. They're going to, like we talked about with Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago when they traded for Minka, it's going to, usually spark the team when the ownership, the general manager gives them some belief, some confidence in the trade for a guy. And, it's a great game to have him for because, he'll be able to cover Julio, who's, obviously the main weapon for the Falcons. But people they don't realize how bad Atlanta is. Still, they still think, oh, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, they could put up points and put up yards, but they're just they're just a turnover machine. Their defense is absolutely horrible, and I think at this point they've probably given up on the coach.
Yeah, and that's something that you're going to be able to watch, I think, as the year goes on. You saw it last year here in Green Bay, obviously, at some point. I think the Cardinals game was a perfect one. I mean, I doubt that a lot of people betted Arizona in that game, but just thinking that was a game where you could clearly see the team had given up and lost faith in the coach here in Green Bay, and I think that's going to happen here pretty quickly in Atlanta as well. The next game you have the Chicago Bears -3 at home against the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints have not lost a game since Drew Brees went down. And that's not necessarily a testament to Teddy Bridgewater, who's kind of dunking the ball all over the place. Alvin Kamara is nursing an injury. Whether or not he'll play is a little unclear at this point. But the Bears may or may not be starting Chase Daniel. We don't know that just yet. But what leads you to believe that Chicago is going to be able to cover a 3-point spread is what is in general, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but in general, that's kind of what's given for home field advantage. What makes you think they can cover that over a New Orleans team that a lot of people think is the best team in the NFC?
Right, Jacob. For a lot of the reasons you just mentioned, that the Saints are a public underdog. The public is betting them at a 75% clip, and as we mentioned last week, the public generally doesn't bet a lot of underdogs. So when they are, it's a good time to fade them. I think the Saints are an overrated team currently. When they get Brees back, it'll be a different story. But this is a fade. Still a fade on Bridgewater. I'm still not sold. Obviously, he's been winning. Congrats and kudos to him for that. But a lot of these wins have, they've been fortunate. I mean, the Seattle game, his first start, they got outgained by the Seahawks 514-265. They had a punt return for a touchdown. They had a fumble return for a touchdown. That's why they won the game. They should have lost. And then against Dallas, he scores 12 points or 13 points. Against Jacksonville last week, he scores 12 points. So, like you said, he's just throwing checkdowns, and Kamara doesn't look like he's going to play. That's a huge loss for quarterback who wants to throw a lot of checkdowns. Against the Bears defense, they're going to do more than that. You're going to have to make some tough throws. You're going to have to make throws under pressure, which he's not really a mobile guy at this point. And it's a home run spot for the Bears coming off a bye, coming off a disappointing loss in London where I was on them and they disappointed me. So they need this game a lot more than the Saints right now, who are 5-1, who are rolling. The Bears are in the toughest division in the league right now. They need this win. They'll be coming out pretty hungry, and this isn't as important of a game to the Saints. And I think they've been getting a little fortunate the last few weeks. With Bridgewater, I don't think they're as good as their record indicates that they are right now.
Any concern at all about betting on an offense against, the Saints, you mentioned the fact that they're not scoring a lot of points, but they're not giving up a lot of points either.
Yeah.
Any concern about potentially Chase Daniel, or even, Mitchell Trubisky's better than Chase Daniel, but it's not this wide gap. So is there any concern about giving a bet to a team that their offense, the Bears' offense stinks? That's to quote, or at least it sounds like something that Mad Dog would say, Chris Russo. Everything stinks when it comes to Mad Dog there. But their offense is bad, and they haven't been good all year long. They're a couple gadget players. They throw a couple balls to Allen Robinson that get caught down the field of the game, but really for the most part, their offense is bad. And New Orleans defense, Marshawn Lattimore can definitely take away Allen Robinson. So is there any concern that you have maybe getting hurt on this bet because of the Bears' offense?
Well, certainly, that's always a possibility there. As you mentioned, that's why New Orleans has won. They've been one of the best defenses in the league, which, coming in the year, you probably, New Orleans had a good defense. I don't know if you expected them to be one of the best in the league like they have been. I think the biggest concern would be up front, where the Bears' offensive line has not been good. They've just put Kyle Long on IR, and you got Rankins and you got Cameron Jordan up front for New Orleans, who are two great players. So that would be my concern there. But as regards to who's the quarterback, I don't really care if it's Trubisky or if it's Daniel. It really doesn't make a difference in my mind. But I just think that this is a home run spot for the Bears. And like I said, I think the Saints are a little overrated right now. And it is a road, it is a road game for them, their second straight road game. And, historically, they haven't been a great road team, even though they've won their last couple of games on the road at Seattle and at Jacksonville last week. But I just think the Kamara injury if he doesn't play, it's It's a huge loss.
Last game that we have on our dock here, a little local flavor. Danny Dimes and the New York Giants going against the Arizona Cardinals. It's a home game. Arizona coming off a big win. The Giants coming off of a Thursday night loss to the New England Patriots. That the Patriots ended up covering that 17-point spread that they had, but honestly, I thought the Giants were okay for parts of that game. They were able to do a few things to make Tom Brady uncomfortable. They were able to do a few things on offense. That Patriots defense is just really, really good, I think, is what it comes down to for them specifically. But you like the Giants here. Saquon Barkley may or may not play. Patrick Peterson is supposed to be back this week, so that would be a boost for the Giants coming in, or excuse me, for the Cardinals coming in. So what has you on the Giants here?
You mentioned Saquon. He's been practicing in full, so I expect him to play. Evan Ingram, their tight end, who's been maybe the best tight end in the league this year. He's been a beast. He missed the New England game. He will be back. He's been practicing in full, so he'll be playing. And it's a Giants team that's coming off extra rest from a Thursday night game against the Cardinals team that's coming off 2 wins in a row, and they're traveling to the East Coast to play a 1 p.m. game, which is always tough on the players for the West Coast. Their body clocks are not right, and that's even more when you have a team with extra rest. So I think getting back Saquon and Ingram and Golden Tate, who played last week, made a big catch for a long touchdown in the New England game that he missed the first few games with his PED suspension. So Danny Dimes has some weapons right now. And I just think, Arizona coming off, 2 straight wins over 2 teams that are absolutely horrible, or maybe a little overvalued right now. And I think Giants, this is a good spot for them with the extra rest and the advantage with Arizona having to travel east for a 1 p.m. game. So combine that with the playmakers to get back, and Arizona's defense is just not good. And Giants defense isn't very good either. But so the over might be a play here, as well as Murray's been playing very well the last couple of weeks, but still not an Arizona team. Even though they won the last 2 games, I think people probably might forget that they're still one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league.
So we got the Giants, the Rams, and the Bears in play this week. Let's talk about Green Bay a little bit here, playing at home against the Oakland Raiders following a Monday night win over the Detroit Lions. The Oakland Raiders coming off of a bye and a big win in London against the Chicago Bears. A matchup that's kind of wonky. The Raiders, Tyrell Williams is not going to play. It sounds like Trent Brown may not be able to play due to some issues. He's their right tackle. And the Packers have a mash unit currently playing wide receiver. They signed Ryan Grant, not the running back, but the receiver, yesterday, and he might have to play a significant role on Sunday. So this game has potential, I think, to be a little bit weird. Depending on where the number I've seen is Green Bay's favored by about 4.5. So a little bit more than your standard home field advantage there. But the Raiders are coming off a bye. The Packers are banged up coming off of a short week. I tend to wonder if this is a game that Oakland can not even cover, but even potentially win outright, just because of the Packers. I mean, on offense on Sunday, Geronimo Allison, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Devontae Adams have not practiced. Now, Valdes-Scantling finished the game on Sunday with the same injury. Allison unlikely to play, I would guess, with a concussion. Even if MVS can go, he's compromised. And then you've got guys like Alan Lazard, Jake Kumaro, Darius Shepard, and newly signed Ryan Grant. That's not exactly the perfect pack from 2011. So I think there could be some difficulty potentially to score some points. And on the other side of the ball, the Packers have a bottom-ranked run defense unit in the league. And the Raiders are coming off of a game where they pushed around the Chicago Bears on the line of scrimmage. So with that in mind, Matt, tell me a little bit about some of your thoughts on this game. I think a lot of people have this penciled in as a win because they expected the Raiders to be bad, myself included. I expected them to win 4 games this season, maybe 1 or 2 either way there, but I didn't expect them to be a playoff-type contender. And if Oakland wins this game, that puts them at 4-2 in a really good position, even though they're playing in the midst of 6 consecutive road games.
Yeah, Jacob, this is very similar to last week for me. I don't money is pouring in on the Raiders, just as it did on the Lions last week. This line opened at 7. down to 4.5. I don't exactly know the reason. I guess the only reason I could surmise is the injury report for Green Bay, which is fair. But based on my power ratings, I had the Packers as a team that's 2.5 points better than an average team. I had the Raiders at 2 points below an average team. So when you factor in the 4 points advantage I give for Green Bay for home field, that should be an 8.5 point spread. So you figure, no, I gotta be running the window to bet Green Bay, but I'm just not doing it because I can't figure out, exactly why so much money is pouring out on the Raiders, and it's very similar to last week, and I can't get on it. Normally, I would be looking to fade a team that got, came off a win where, I know you don't like talking about this, but I think it's the truth, where four bad calls were, without them, the Packers don't win. I think that's a fact. But on the other hand, the Packers outgained the Lions 447 to 299. They had almost double the amount of first downs, and they won the game with a turnover differential that was 3-0, which is extremely hard to do.
Yeah, -3.
Yeah, -3. So the Packers really, even though they got gifts from the referees to ultimately win, they shouldn't have been. They really outplayed the Lions for most of the game, besides for two plays in the first two drives that over Kevin King's head for 70 yards, 60 yards. Besides for those plays, the Packers really dominated the rest of the game from scrimmage. It was actually, I think I told you this. This was the game. This was a game where, besides from the Bears win, I was most impressed with their defense, even though they didn't force any turnovers, because from scrimmage they stopped the run, and they forced punts, they forced field goals after the turnovers. They responded to adversity. They got some pressure. And I thought, defensively it was a great game for them. So I really don't know what to make of this Packers-Raiders game. I think the Raiders, they're the team in the league that I just don't feel confident in my opinion on them. I thought, like you, coming in the year, that they'd be terrible, and I've been wrong. I bet against them a couple of times, and they burned me. So I don't know what to think of them right now, and I don't know what to think. I can't go against all this, sharp professional money that is betting the Raiders right now. So this probably, out of any game on the slate this week, this is the one where I'm actually probably least confident what will happen.
Wow, that's crazy to think. Yeah, because I think at the beginning of the year, if you had done a schedule breakdown or something like that, I think most people would expect Green Bay to win. Now, obviously, they're missing some guys. I'll say this too: if Devontae Adams and Valdez-Scantling and Darnell Savage and some of the guys they were missing were healthy, I would think that Green Bay would be closer to, as you mentioned, that 7 to 8 point favorite. But because of the injuries, I think that's between that and the public money betting, the sharp money betting Oakland. I think that's what's bringing that line down a little bit.
Yeah, it has to be. It's the 60% of the tickets are on the Packers, or 63% of the tickets are on the Packers, but 60% of the cash is on Oakland. So that means, the public's a little more on the Packers side, and the professionals, the sharps, are coming in hard on the Raiders. So I think this is the last 2 weeks. Obviously, those guys are feeling that the Packers are an overrated team at this point. It has to be the injuries. I can't see it being anything else.
Hard to say at this point. I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask every week, though, Matt. Do we win on Sunday?
I think we'll pull it out. I would say I'll say we win by 4 points, right around the spread, because I really don't know. I really don't have an opinion on that, but I just have to think that even though the injuries are what they are. You mentioned the Raiders have a couple of Tyrell Williams he was out against the Bears though too, and they still moved the ball with ease, and Trent Brown. So hopefully they just get enough pass rush with the guys that are healthy, even though Kenny Clark didn't practice today, which would be a big deal if he could go. But I think at home, with the tough schedule they have coming up, this is really a game that they have. It's very important. Even though they're 5-1, you figure, it's not that big of a game that you're 5-1. But with the tough schedule, this is a game you really want to win. So I'll say they pull it out.
Yeah, and if you start looking ahead a little bit, at Kansas City's going to have 10 days to prep because they play tonight. At LA, which is basically like a ninth home game, that game doesn't look as imposing, but the Chargers are really talented, so that's something that can certainly come into play. And they're traveling all the way to the West Coast. Carolina actually looks better without Cam Newton. So that's something that'll be interesting going forward. And then you got the 49ers, who are undefeated, coming off of the Packers bye week. So I agree with you. I think this is a big game for Green Bay, especially you want to keep banking those wins getting into the latter part of the season, because those last three games, Chicago at home, Minnesota on the road, Detroit on the road, and Detroit on the road, you talked about when Green Bay played Dallas, the potential for like some revenge games and stuff like that. I think that's something we'll be talking about in Week 17 for Detroit, because Detroit certainly feels like they got robbed. They can feel however they want. That's great, but they'll feel that way, and I think that'll matter. And the Packers, they haven't won in Detroit in a long time, and that really has been a building from hell for them for quite some time. Even some of their best teams didn't win there. Their Super Bowl team lost in that building. The 2014 team that should have gone to the Super Bowl struggled in that building. The 2015 team that was pretty good won on a Hail Mary and otherwise should have probably lost in that building. So Green Bay's got to keep banking those wins, and I think this is a spot for them to do it. Thanks for checking this out every week, guys. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. So you can follow me personally on Twitter. I'm at Jacob Westendorf. You can follow the show's Twitter. It is at Packer Pulse. And if you want to get rich, Matt tweets this stuff out every single week. He's at Matt Bove HS. Let's get rich, kids. So you guys got your bets for this week. We've got the Bears -3 against New Orleans. We've got the Rams -3 against Atlanta. And we've got the Giants -3 taking on the Arizona Cardinals. After winning 2 of our 3 bets last week, you'd be a fool not to at least try this out this week. Thank you guys for listening to Team Degenerate on another week of Pulse of the Pack.